I've been tasked with figuring out if this gun is crap or not. Okay, so this is a new thing that I'm doing. It's a review, and I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but today we're going to be reviewing the Jimenez Arms J.A. 22. So Jimenez Arms is the next in line of, I guess you would call them the Saturday night specials. Federal government didn't like them also simply because they typically don't like people being able to get firearms for cheap. They're sort of half and half on the average of cheap. They're not like exploding or anything as often, it seems. I have not seen any case of Jimenez guns really self-destructing, but that's always noted in these videos. Now, everyone was telling my family not to buy one of these, but I thought it would be cool to have a inexpensive handgun and do this review simply because everyone always says it's so horrible. What can you get for it? This, by the way, is $130, and it comes with this trigger safety thingy-mabob, which is actually really good, but it's like spring-loaded and stuff. A lot of people say how good it is in reviews. It does feel like cheaper plastic than I was expecting, but it's still a pretty good trigger lock if you want to use those. I mean, I would probably say just keep this somewhere that's already locked and you wouldn't have a problem, especially with it getting stolen, because obviously someone can steal this without the trigger lock, or trigger guard. I'm not really sure what you would call it, because some guns actually do have a lock that just locks the trigger. The safety, if you take it off safe, doesn't actually have that definite of a click. It has a definite click when you put it on safety, but when you take it off, it's more of a mush. I just keep it off. I'm really the only person in our family that shoots this. I'm not even sure if my mom has shot it. My mom hasn't shot her Beretta that much, even though she was the one who bought this. This gun had a problem before the Jimenez. My dad has shot it some. It's more of a family gun, because we usually shoot together and stuff, and I can't shoot it by myself because I'm under 21, and Florida laws are really stupid. I have no idea what the 18 to 21, I'll call it a paradox, is supposed to mean, because besides constitutionally, when in the world do you adopt your Second Amendment rights? Blue pamphlet of glory here. But also, like, some people have said if people gift you a pistol and you're under 21, you're legally allowed to own that pistol, but I can't find any laws on that. But either way, this isn't my pistol. It's just here. And I get to shoot it more often, so I'm doing the review on it. So, I really like how it looks. I'll start cutting in some footage of me actually shooting it, but I like how it looks. It looks sort of like I believe it's a Walther PPK, only miniaturized, which I think is really cool. The reason we got this over the Phoenix Arms 22 was basically on how it looks and how easy it is to manipulate, because all the other pocket pistols we've seen have a really hard spring in there to pull back, and this one is actually very easy to cock, and it has this indicator on the back. A lot of these Saturday night specials or cheap guns are covered in these little note of fire things, so people don't do something on accident and then get angry at the company for some reason. I can tell you probably if Hillary Clinton passes something that says you're allowed to sue firearm manufacturers, Jimenez would probably be one of the ones quickly harassed by those lawsuits, not just because they're cheap firearms, but because the federal government doesn't really like them that much, and they would probably do anything to make them lose any lawsuit and just waste all the money away. So this was previously unboxed, obviously, and I've been putting footage in of that unboxing. It comes with two, I believe, 6-round magazines. It has these little holes in them. which make absolutely no sense because you never can tell if it's loaded, because I believe it goes all the way down to here, you know, fully loaded. And they load into the gun through a European style mag release is what everyone on the internet calls it. It's basically just this like spring loaded stub here that you pull back, and then you sort of have to pull it out too. Trigger, as I sort of demonstrated when I pulled this back, I love this trigger. A lot of firearms have a very long trigger pull, and I do not like that in the slightest. And the Walther PPK, I believe, had that problem, which is actually one step up from the Walther PPK with this. This has a short trigger pull. Issue with it is the trigger is super cheap. It has like this ridge in here. It's not irritating at all, but you can tell it's just literally a plastic trigger with a piece of metal that goes through it, which is probably the actual trigger, and this is sort of just a design. You can see the molding lines there. As for accuracy, the gun is fairly accurate. Again, I hit the target 5 times out of 6. I was aiming for the bottom left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know where the 6th one went. It might have went somewhere else on this target. Again, it's a fairly small target, and I'm standing this far away. I've been able to do better with this than with the, I believe it's a Beretta Bobcat or a Beretta 9 something or other. It's one of those, it's a 22 short with a top loading thing on it. I've been able to shoot more accurately with this than with that, but it's probably just because this feels more comfortable to me. Now, I did many videos testing the accuracy of this and just shooting at stuff. Not previously on the channel, but I filmed myself shooting it a lot. And I have to say, it is pretty fun to shoot, especially when you consider the price. Obviously, being a very short barrel and small gun, it is not meant for even slightly long-range shooting. So I didn't shoot that far away from it. It's not like a sort of gun that you would want to get just to test your accuracy at distances, because it's not going to give you a correct representation of where you're pointing the thing. But it's still a fun range gun, especially, again, for the price. Now, here comes the big issue, my main problem with it, and that is, no matter what I did, I could not get it 100% reliable. 2 mags, no problem. 3 mags, no problem. 4 mags, no problem. 5 mags, no problem. I've shot 42 rounds through it, still have not suffered a problem. The only problem I have gotten is it feels almost like a sparkler, these little black dots hitting me. And I can't tell if it's because I lubed it up too much and that's like molten lube, or if it's just gunpowder or some other powder. People who know a lot more about the innards of guns might be able to tell me what's going on, but it's definitely not like injuring me. It's just, you know, feels like a sparkler, so that's something to add. I thought possibly that the 0 to 50 mark would be 100% reliability, because the first time I shot it, I got to about the 50, I shot 50 rounds through it, and around then is when it failed on me. It's official. Got my first failure to feed on a Jimenez J.A 22. Then the second or third time I fired 70 something rounds through it without a problem. I did have a failure to feed, but I think that was my fault. But yeah, I fired 70 something rounds through it and it worked fine. I just shot 75 rounds. There were 25 left in this and 50 in this, and we're halfway out of this, and it has not messed up once. So I'm going to leave that here for today, go clean it, shoot another 50 through it or something some other day. I'm beginning to think this gun's more reliable than people were letting on. Then the next time I had quite, I think 2 or 3 malfunctions with it, And then I tried shooting the gun after, because each time I went out to shoot it, these like 50 round increments, I went back, cleaned it, and oiled it. So this gun I have gotten really good at cleaning, you can say the least. Which, the nice thing about it is you can just clean it with a Q-tip because the barrel's so short. But you have to, get in all the crevices in the mechanism and oil the whole thing to make sure it works pretty reliably. Now, after oiling it and everything, I waited 2 weeks instead of oiling it right before I went out to shoot, and that's when I had a problem. I think it had it had quite a few malfunctions within the 50 round mark, and that's when I realized I could never recommend this for self-defense, because more than likely, if someone broke into your house or you're going to carry this thing, you might pull it out and it might not work. We have an issue. Wow, so it actually chambered around. Firing pin went off. But the bullet didn't go off. There's no like mark on the back of the bullet where like the firing pin would have hit it. On the last of the first 50 with no oiling, you gotta, I guess that's a stovepipe, I'm not sure because it's facing backwards. And there's another round trying to get in there. We got a cheap holster from the flea market, and for the first time ever I tried drawing this, and one time I drew it, pulled the trigger, and the gun went click. Did not go off, and that was even a bigger indicator to me that you cannot trust this thing for self-defense. It's a really fun range gun and just to play around with, and if it's the only thing you got, I guess it's better than nothing. But usually I know a lot of these concealed carry people really like to know that when they draw their gun, it's going to work no matter what. It's also why a lot of people do not trust these smart guns that the media keeps talking about. So how did I get this to shoot semi-reliably where I could shoot whole mags through it and not have a malfunction? Well, you gotta shoot CCI mini mags, and you gotta make sure the thing's oiled up, because it's not going to work otherwise. If you shoot bulk ammo or hollow points or anything like that, it's either going to bust up the gun because it's not built for that, so I wouldn't shoot really hot rounds. And also bulk ammunition, if it's not copper or brass plated or plated in the slightest, the lead will get caught on the feed ramp, and if it's a hollow point or has a flat nose, it will also get caught on the feed ramp, which is what I'm going to show you right now. So in order to disassemble this, I've heard a lot of people complaining about the disassembly of this firearm. But I don't really think it's that bad, especially for the price. I just spent 2 hours trying to clean the Hi Point 995, and now that is a pain. And that firearm I own, so I definitely have to clean that thing, and it is a pain. But anyways, in order to disassemble this pistol, really the only issue that most people have with it is this back bit right here. There's where the cock indicator, I guess is what it would be called. If you press this basically as a button, you can raise the slide up, and then the whole gun basically comes apart pretty easily. The problem with this is obviously it's a hole, so you have to find something that doesn't go down into the hole, but you also have to find something that isn't bigger than the ring around it. I saw a dude online who used a paintbrush, and I started looking around my house for something that wouldn't scratch up the finish, because this black finish actually comes off if you put anything metal scraping against it. And originally I was going to use a pencil, but then I did find a wooden paintbrush, and this works probably the best out of everything. I was just attacked by a wasp. I don't understand why parents always tell us, oh, if you just leave them alone, they won't bug you. They like fly right into your ear. So what you gotta do is pretty much hold it like this and pull it back a little bit as you're pressing this down. So you press that down and then you pull this up, and once you get past a certain point, this little hook here comes out from where it was latched, and then you can just slide it forwards and slide it off. Now in here is the firing pin, which here's that little hook that we were just talking about. Take out the hook, there's the spring, and back in here is the firing pin. And the firing pin is also, on the back of the firing pin is the cock indicator. And just to reassemble it, you just slide everything back in there. Now what you really want to clean out, probably with a toothbrush if you have one of those, obviously we all have a toothbrush, but one that you don't use, is to make sure all the, not sure if it's carbon buildup, but you know, the crud in there is scraped out, because the firing pin obviously hits the back of the bullet right here, and all the junk goes that way. As for this part of the pistol, here's the mainspring, whatever the technical use for that is, and it has a fixed barrel, so you don't have to worry about taking off the barrel or anything. And as you can tell, it's a very small barrel. I use a Q-tip to clean that out. And you gotta also make sure junk is off of, again, don't know the technical term, but this little knob here that's like a different color than the rest of the gun. Now the issue with feeding it has, which I have no idea why they don't fix this, because if they made this a reliable gun, this would pretty much be perfect. But it has this little feed ramp here, and you can see that it feeds up that little lip there, but then there's just this gap here, and as a round comes up this tiny ramp here, it can get caught as it goes up that on just the slight step where the barrel is. The camera focus isn't working too well. Hopefully you understand what I mean. Oh my gosh, camera, really? You're not going to focus? It's taking up like 80% of the screen. Okay, there. You get to see it a little bit there. So that is why you have to use bullets that are plated with a stronger metal, and that, I believe it would be called stub-nosed, but you know, one that has a rounded end instead of a hollow point or something of that nature. To put it back together, it's sort of just the reverse pattern. I always end up screwing this up like that. Again, I'm not sure how well this camera is going to focus, but just, you know, make sure you're doing this in the right order and you'll be fine. So there you go. So here's the thing. It's $125. So for $125, you got a cool, easy to use pocket pistol, and I think that's really cool. It is, I mean, it's definitely not heavy compared to full-sized handguns, but it is heavy on the concealed carry mini pistol side of things. However, like I said, I would not trust this with my life, and I would not recommend you trusting it with your life. But again, I guess weight and reliability would be the only things really putting it behind. But for $125 just to shoot around with it at targets, or just to, if you can't concealed carry yet, or if you just want to drill for when you do get a concealed carry, or when you do decide to carry, you could get one of these and like a cheap holster and just drill yourself with seeing how quick you can draw and shoot. If I did not mention this at the beginning of the video, these are made in the USA, and apparently they have a lifetime warranty, so that's cool. But also, which I don't have the paper with me, but they give you a little piece of paper where you can buy parts for this. Now this is the cool thing. Basically, the most expensive part on the gun is the slide, which you can buy for $20. You can buy a new firing pin for like $3 or $5. Just think about that. All these, and most of the parts are like $3 or $5. So if something goes wrong with the gun, you can basically buy a new part for it for like definitely less than $10. There's I don't think anything between $10 and $20, and the only thing above $10 is the slide. If I did not mention it, it does not have a last round hold open, and something that does make me a little weary is I've probably fired 200 rounds through this, and when I first heard about these, I was looking around for reviews, and like within the same week, Such did a video on the JA-22. His review seemed to be pretty in favor of it as a inexpensive firearm, but then he linked you to the old J-22 video, which was Jennings' version of this, and in that he said that would be a good idea for keeping these long term to have a second firing pin in case the firing pin breaks, which it's not that much money, but I'm a little confused by that because the firing pins used in these don't really come to an exact point, and I don't know how exactly it would break because it's just sort of a stubbed piece of metal. We'll see with longer time. Maybe I'll do an update video on this in 5 or 10 years when something breaks. I'm not going to be firing this that often, and I don't think my parents are because they don't fire it that often either, but it's, I guess, something to note. It's not something I've experienced, but it's what a popular firearm reviewer has said about it. Thank you for sticking through this video. I have no idea how this footage is showing up because I'm holding up a DSLR. I forget what it's called. One of those cameras that look like a camera. So I can't see my face when I'm holding it like this. However, I just wanted to say thanks for watching, and also we have militiaofone.com shirts now. So if you're into my blog, we got shirts, and here's a Target. Got it at Walmart. It's a thing. See you guys later.